Will you please be seated? Chairman, governors, trustees, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the school, and the various other dignitaries we have here. I've met a marshal of the court leet, and I've met a civic head, but judging by the various bits of brass I can see around me, we have a number of others as well. You're all most welcome. We're only sorry we couldn't organise the weather for you, but nonetheless it's a nice, warm and pleasant occasion. And it is a very special day. Commemoration is always a special day, and this one in 2014 is perhaps even more special than some we've had. Some of you were at the service we've just had at St John's Church, and I must congratulate all those who took part in it, because, as always, it was a very, very special occasion. And we thank Dr. Roberts in his absence for the ideas he put to our leavers, the thoughts of beginning and ends, which was very much the centre of his sermon. But we also had a very fine service yesterday in chapel for the preparatory school, and that was followed in this very tent. Tent doesn't seem a good enough word for something like this, is it? Where the speaker was the deputy head girl, and she did a wonderful job. So the headmaster, if he's going to be our speaker today, has got something to live up to. She was outstandingly good, and our congratulations go to her. I also thought, didn't you, that the singing in the church was excellent. Mendelssohn happened at both the services yesterday, but I waited for the Lord. Seemed to be very appropriate with a new headmaster coming as an anthem. So our thanks very much to the Director of Music and the choir for the excellent music at St John's Church. Now, with our minds very much focused on the centenary of the outbreak of World War I, the same year, incidentally, that Kiteleys was built, we thank Philip Bowen, our Deputy Headmaster, for his beautifully illustrated book on this moving subject. It will be on sale in the Old Bromsgrovian tent, and I recommend it to you most warmly. Anybody who attended the excellent presentation on Bromsgrove School in the First World War, given by Philip and his cast of students, will have been reminded not only how remarkable our old Bromsgrovians were in those extraordinary times, but how very lucky we are today. Those very students who were performing in the cast with Philip could by now be at the battlefront as they would have been in 1914. Today, as you will have gathered, we're actually breaking with tradition. The headmaster asked me, as the president of the governing body, if I would take over his traditional role of reviewing the year gone by in order to free him from the constraints of recording school events and to take over the guest speaker role. It's something like the feeling of being the straight man with the real performer coming after you. I know I have your sympathy. I do keep a close eye on what's going on in the school, but of course the detail of what I'm going to be saying to you was very much presented to me by the headmaster. Perhaps the most important job that governors ever have to do is to find a new head, and we've had to find one this year in succession to Chris Edwards. And I'm delighted to say that the current headmaster of Christian School and the chosen new headmaster for Bromsgrove School is with us today. Peter Clegg has in fact flown in especially for the commemoration. He will receive at the end of the afternoon the flag from Chris Edwards at the conclusion of call-over. And that's an event we hope that many of you will stay to witness. Peter, we're most grateful to you for the considerable effort involved in flying over, especially for an event of this sort. We only think that perhaps you're inspired by the performance of the All Blacks, and that you're forgetting just how tired you are as a result of the jet lag you must be feeling. I know you'd like to say just a few words to the parents and pupils to introduce yourself and to respond to the very warm welcome which we all want to give. Peter Clegg.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. It's the headmaster and me wishes now to acknowledge everybody who's here and offer a welcome, and that's not yet my place, so I won't do that. Let me, therefore, just offer my thanks for that warm welcome you just made reference to. Please stop apologising for the weather. My father was a meteorologist and an Englishman to boot, so you've got nothing to apologise for. I feel very privileged to be here, and it's my pleasure to have been able to get away for this weekend. I almost didn't get here. The border people looked at the New Zealand passport and I could tell they were rugby supporters. And then the lady in the customs booth looked at where I'd come from and the fact that I was staying for 2 days, and it took quite some explanation to say that I wasn't actually smuggling anything. I was coming for a very important occasion, and it is a very important occasion, and I'm so glad I'm here. I was humbled by this morning's service. This is a magnificent school, and it is a great pleasure and privilege to know that this is to be my home and my work for the next few years. I am deeply in the headmaster's debt for the state in which he passes on the school, and indeed to the governors for their stewardship. I'm excited about my work here. I've made a start on learning I'm leaving behind a school of a similar size, so 1,600 young people who I've finally got to know after 15 years. I have to empty that part of my brain and make a start to learn some new names and faces. So forgive me if I do forget your names, but know that that will be my work, to learn who you are and what your hopes and aspirations are for this great school. Thank you very much for your warm welcome.
And now I'm afraid, slightly more somberly, we all wish to pay tribute to one of our great friends on the governing body who sadly died recently. Professor Sir Michael Drury was a very fine Bromsgrovian and a role model for many of the young people that we have in the school. He was in Lupton House from 1939 to 1943, and was one of the few remaining old Bromsgrovians who have direct experience of the evacuation to unaudited wells during the war. His practice, the practice at which he actually worked, was the practice for the school. They ran the health centre for over 80 years. And in the 1970s, he set up the Department of General Practice at Birmingham University and became the first professor of general practice there in 1981. He joined the governors in 1990 and was chairman of the Education Committee from 1996 to 2003, and became a vice president of Bromsgrove Governors in 2003. A genial, gracious man, Michael was the president of the Royal College of General Practitioners, and his outstanding contribution was recognised by a knighthood in 1989. When reviewing his biography, the British Journal of General Practice described him as a great man, and he was just that. He'll be greatly missed by all members of the Bromsgrove community who knew him. Now, the headmaster asks that we look back, and perhaps before we do that before we look forward, or rather perhaps upwards, because we are now going to be thanking an old Bromsgrovian, Matthew Taylor, for his great generosity in funding the Matthew Taylor Observatory, which will be formally opened later today. Again, we hope some of you will be able to visit the observatory on that occasion. The observatory is actually located on the prep school site, where light, or rather the lack of it, is more conducive to studying the heavens. It'll be the most wonderful facility for enriching opportunities in physics and, crucially, inspiring pupils to take up the newly introduced GCSE astronomy course. One giant leap for Bromsgrove School, indeed, Matthew. I gather that you were revelling last night at our sister foundation and your other alma mater, Worcester College, Oxford. But if you're in the marquee, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to stand up so that we can all thank you for the wonderful legacy to the young people of Bromsgrove School. Matthew, are you there?
No.
Well, why don't we just give him a round of applause? Recently returned, in fact very recently returned, are Stephen and Benita Challoner. They have done 3 years of outstanding work in our international school in Thailand. Those of us who visited them there in Thailand can testify to their great achievement. We thank them for their superb work and welcome them back to Bromsgrove, and we hope that you, Steve, enjoy resuming your senior position at the school. And of course, as we're doing that, we wish continued success to Bromsgrove International School in Thailand. Steve and Benita, thank you for what you've done. Turning to academics, the headmaster tells us that last year, by every measure, our sixth form were exceptional. Our A-level and IB results were our best ever, and in both cases placed us in the top 10 of all UK's co-educational boarding schools, day and boarding schools, whilst our BTEC results, albeit from a relatively small cohort, saw every entry bar none graded at starred distinction level, placing us first in the land, inevitably. Measures of value added, which I think are probably the fairest comparison between schools, saw us in the top 10% of all UK independent schools. All of you in the sixth form who were responsible for those results deserve our congratulations. Well done. And what of this year? Well, we are continuing to push further into academically demanding territory. We have had 70 students, more than ever before, undertaking a significant piece of independent university-level research, either under the IB umbrella or as a standalone extended project qualification. We've embraced IB self-taught literature in a way that we think goes beyond what is done in any other school in Europe or North Africa, whilst we have, for the first time, students formally studying Mandarin. If there were years in the past when we doubted the ambition of some of our students, we are now immensely proud of the challenges they undertake and the discipline they show in acquiring new knowledge and skills. Our thanks and congratulations go also to the teachers here at Bromsgrove. They work so very hard in a fast-changing educational world to help their students deliver outstanding results again and again, and are still willing to embrace change with courage. We don't need Ofsted or ISI to tell us, although they do, that we are an outstanding school. Pupils and parents will be making their own farewells to those teachers who are retiring or moving on to new pastures this year. But to all of them, we offer our sincere thanks and best wishes for a happy and successful future. And in our applause, which I know is about to come, we also couple great success for those who are remaining here to see that the next generation do equally well. Thanks to all of you. And this is, of course, the best time to thank our 400 support staff. These magnificent grounds, which even in this weather, if I may be allowed to still make the remark, have they ever looked better? They're just one manifestation of their huge dedication to the school. Inspired by our bursar Leslie Brooks, the successes of this school could not have been achieved without the loyalty of our support staff, their skill and their passion. And again, we applaud them for their valuable contribution. When one looks beyond academics, one finds here a breadth of education that helps define what today's Bromsgrove stands for. For every event I'm about to mention, we could record so many more successes. Some of the highlights include the chapel choir singing at Gloucester Cathedral, the chamber choir at St David's Cathedral, and the choral society performing the Messiah in Routh Hall. There was a superb School for Scandal performed at the Artrix Theatre. And we have seen brilliant award-winning lower school productions that stand us in good stead for future Edinburgh performances. In no particular order, the headmaster recalls an electric car built and driven by Bromsgrove pupils, which won acclaim and laurels at the Rockingham circuit, robots designed and built by pupils successfully in a national competition, and all this while the CCF, Duke of Edinburgh Award Programme and the European Youth Parliament were flourishing. Rather than iterate every single sporting success, and that could take a very long time here at Bromsgrove, the headmaster reminds us that this year the magazine School Sport conducted a most thorough survey of the performance in thousands of Britain's schools across 25 sports, and they judged Bromsgrove to be the 4th best sporting school in the land. Perhaps we should add, not to score cheap points, but as a serious point about our philosophy of education within breadth, that the winning sports school's A-level performance was 35% below that of Bromsgrove. Clearly, our athletes' brains are developing as rapidly as their sporting prowess. To the governors and foundation trustees, especially the foundation president, Viscount Cobham, who stands down this year, we extend our gratitude. The headmaster's vision for the foundation to widen access to this great school so that all pupils might apply regardless of their personal circumstances. This has been hugely helped by the generosity of Chris Cobham and all trustees. We look forward to raising the profile of this great cause still further and commend the great success of the recent foundation auction, the first of its kind. But from all governors and trustees, service has been selfless, and actions have continually demonstrated not only a deep knowledge, but a love of the school. In our governors and foundation trustees, we have forward-looking, ambitious, compassionate men and women who have been unfailingly supportive of the headmaster, even when his thinking was, as he tells me, decidedly out of the box. I should couple with those praises which have been given the vice presidents, who I see have turned up in force today to support this very special event. The vice presidents are the main people who have done great service as governors in their time and continue to wish to support the school in the future. To all those governors and trustees and vice presidents, can we give our thanks? It was back in 1993 when I joined the governing body, and since then, as Secretary of the Headmasters' Conference and afterwards, I've been advising and inspecting and appointing heads of many HMC schools. So I am well placed to say that Bromsgrove has been indeed very fortunate with the finest of headmasters in the last 10 years. Matthew Horton, then Chairman of the Governors, asked me to help in finding someone to replace Tim Taylor as head when Tim retired in 2004. We had a good list of applicants, but one stood out, and when we appointed Chris Edwards, we were particularly concerned we might not have him for more than 5 years before he was headhunted to a so-called more famous school. The headhunters did indeed keep trying, but such has been his love for Bromsgrove that we've had his inspirational leadership for 10 years. In that time, he's taken a school which was already doing a good job, up into the top division of independent schools. By whatever criterion you choose, Bromsgrove is now a stronger school. Numbers in all 3 schools have increased significantly, and that includes boarding numbers, where nationally they've been in decline. And a truly international sixth form with students from 43 different countries. Those sixth formers now produce academic results to rival the best, and that includes the IB, which was introduced by the headmaster 4 years ago. History will probably say that his greatest achievement was in building excellence into an existing tradition for providing all-round education. The breadth, depth and quality of the education at Bromsgrove have been given another dimension under his leadership. Many would argue that as a result of the unique spirit which Chris Edwards has inculcated, Bromsgrove is now a national leader in the field. He is a great lateral thinker, and many of his ideas have been given form in the prodigious building programme he has overseen. I was talking to the chairman of our building committee the other day, of the governors that is, and he says £30 million has been spent on new buildings in this 10 years that we're talking about. The science and the humanities building, the sports facilities and the boarding houses have all been beneficiaries. And he leaves plans for more, not least the dining hall, and I'm pleased to say the performing arts. So there's a future plan as well. Many of you will know the special personal qualities which Chris brings to the job. His generosity of spirit, his intellectual rigour, his ability to relate well to everyone he meets, and not least, as we're about to hear, his brilliant powers of communication. And for these, and for his friendship, as well as his achievements, he will be greatly missed. But he leaves Bromsgrove School in great heart and looking eagerly forward to future development. Chris is going on to head up the largest independent school in the world, the United World College in Singapore, with 5,500 students. I can tell you now that some of those governors with a nervous disposition are relieved he's going to Singapore to manage such a school rather than staying here at Bromsgrove. Goodness knows how our school would have grown if he'd been staying. For the most remarkable achievement of the school in the 10 years, for your 10 years of headship, we give you our heartfelt thanks and applause. I know you would all want me to couple that with the team that Chris built up to help him during that period of time. Let us thank him now for that 10 years. I now invite the Deputy Headmaster, Philip Bowen, to read out the names of the prize winners and ask the Headmaster to present the awards. And then he will give his final Commemoration Day speech.
The Wattell Prizes: English, Ben Thornley; History, Alia Inetanova; Religious Studies, Samuel Rose; French, Catherine Leather. Spanish, Margarita Domasheva; Business Studies, Patsy Solomou; Politics, Angel Liu; Geography, Harry Gibbs. Latin, Alexander Cox; Economics, Julia Guo; Mathematics, Una Wu; Art, Stephanie Swatkins; Art Textiles, Anastasia Chebatareva. Physical Education, Amy Foster. Graphics DT, Henrietta Horsley-Gubbins. German, Daniel Garvey. Physics, Dennis Nesterov. Other academic prizes: IB German, First Language, Catalina Heine. William Ledbrook Prize for Geography, Jagraj Bandal. Amphlett Prize for Chemistry, Jagraj Bandal. Philip Denham Cook's Prize for Drama, Emily Taylor. The John Headley Memorial Prize, CCF, Adam Foster. The Turner Memorial Prize for Music, Samuel Adamson. Chaytor Pepper Prize for Classics, Classical Civilization, Ben Thornley. Alison Bramley Memorial Prize for Mathematics, Leonie Hiller. Geoffrey Lewins Prize for Technology, Thomas Stokes. Houseman Verse Prize, Declan Amphlett. Staff Reading Prize, Nairi Williams. Special prizes: Senior Boarders, Philip Rousel and Margarita Domasheva. Deputy Head Boy and Deputy Head Girl, Daniel Garvey and Andrea Elenis. And the Head Boy and Head Girl, Samuel Leather and Emily Taylor. The Tony Limbert Award is presented to the person who most closely epitomises everything that Tony himself, head of house in Wendron Gordon, represented in Bromsgrove sport: commitment, determination, endeavour and loyalty. The recipient this year made a magnificent contribution throughout her time with us, representing the school at first team level in no fewer than 7 sports. As athletics captain, she displayed superb leadership skills and on several occasions would finish a tennis match here and run to the Ryland Centre to compete in the 1500. Unassuming and modest in all things, utterly reliable, she always gives her best regardless of the task ahead, shows excellent sportsmanship and always arrived at every training session and match with a smile on her face. An outstanding Bromsgrovian, Hannah Troe. What sums up a Bromsgrovian, Paul Sawtell did as both pupil and much-loved colleague. This young man made an admirable contribution to numerous aspects of life at Bromsgrove. A cornerstone of the CCF, he was like an adult instructor, planning and delivering training to RAF cadets. As a very active drum major, he led last Saturday the historic Court League procession through our town. In music, a real team player in various bands. A key figure in our boarding community, as housemaster highlights his kind and caring nature, the perfect person for younger boys to talk to, knowing when to be the listening ear and when to be the leading example. He has rarely seen a pupil have so much respect from peers. He's a doer with boundless enthusiasm, a tireless pursuit of excellence, and keen to encourage all ages. A great sense of humour and storyteller too. He goes for a gap year at Disney World, saying that he's followed our instructions for years and soon has to be told what to do by a mouse. Philip Rousel. Ben Schall was a brilliant actor, and the Rose Bowl to his memory is awarded to a pupil who has made a fine contribution to school drama. This young man burst onto the stage in the Threepenny Opera in the upper fourth, like a wonderful, artful dodger, was a fairy in The Dream, and in the sixth form, brilliant leading roles in Cats and The School for Scandal. Almost a one-man show, audiences have loved every moment he's been on our stage. Rada Gold too. Attributes of great acting, every syllable heard, impressive stage presence, perfect timing, were allied to such hard work and commitment. He threw himself into drama with absolute gusto, supreme energy, and with an absolutely brilliant sense of humour. Always, says our director of drama, the perfect gentleman, a professional and a joy and privilege to work with. Simon Hotchin. Kelly was head girl here and served her school with great devotion, and others. And this memorial this year is awarded to someone who's also nobly served our own and a wider community. If a task needed organising or a volunteer required, one name often sprang readily to mind. She's given up countless hours to help and support others, whether it be boarders at prep school or the wider world in residential homes, or at the recent Comic Relief Fun Mile, where she was a coordinator. A trained Level 2 sports leader, she's won a commendation from Sports Leaders UK for extensive contributions to the scheme, has also coached children at Regency High School for the physically and mentally handicapped. Also an outstanding head of house. She embraces the true meaning of a Bromsgrovian in its broadest sense, having a genuine interest in others and showing real compassion, true to both our foundation and our ethos. Georgina Flowerdew. And finally, the historic Cook's Prize. This Bromsgrovian has enjoyed an outstanding all-round school career. One of the finest of our debaters in recent years, he was articulate, witty, urbane, confident. Far from declamatory in debate, but quick to cut through to the heart of the argument and casually present the only apparent conclusion with such certainty that an audience would be foolish not to support him. An outstanding public speaker too, who read absolutely magnificently at the book launch. A highly valued member of both chapel and chamber choirs, and a delight in both, the heart and soul of the lighter side of rehearsals. At Pop and Jazz, a remarkably witty song about the school, accompanying himself on ukulele. The performance brought the house down, and even our headmaster did not want to follow him on stage. That takes some doing. In November, he made his first and last major appearance at the Art Tricks as a wonderfully debonair Sir Oliver, his acting as colourful as his garish attire. Highly regarded by his peers and with some awe, yet modest and a great encourager of the young. His is a formidable intellect, with a place offered to read modern languages at Trinity College, Cambridge. This was a truly remarkable contribution, especially to the cultural life of the school, which belied his years. Declan Amphlett.
Mr. Chairman, President, Governors, Trustees, special guests, friends and members of Bromsgrove School, Mother. Yeah, my mother's turned up today, and sadly that means I'm going to have to behave myself. I was raised as an only child, which really annoyed my 4 sisters. One of whom is actually here today looking after my mother, who's already managed to break, would you believe, the chair in the taxi that brought us from the church. Looking back on my childhood, I don't think my mother brought me up to be a good example. I think she brought me up to be a horrible warning. And I don't know how the boys feel here, but I was just thinking, and I'm not going to do this for long, Mum, it's okay, I'll stop in a minute, but wouldn't life have been better when you were 7 years old if mothers hadn't sacrificed everything for your education and just been a little more liberal? And just sort of a few sentences I would have loved to have heard from my mother when I was younger. Things like, "Yes, son, leave all the lights on. It makes the house look really cheery." Or maybe, "Well, if Billy Patterson's mother says it's okay, that's good enough for me." "A tissue? What's wrong with your sleeve?" And the one, certainly when I was very young, I'd have liked to have heard, "Let me smell that shirt." "Yeah, that's good for another week." And the other person I need to welcome, of course, is Peter, who has been formally welcomed to the school. Unfortunately, as I walked from my office to Routh Hall about 40 minutes ago, I heard a mother say, "He's very good looking, isn't he?" And I thought, great, you could have left the elephant man to shuffle off into the jungle. My problem today, of course, is I'm not actually reviewing the year. The President, and I give him my sincere thanks, has already done that. So this is a different brief from my normal one. I've got to give the leavers a very serious takeaway message. It's now known as the takeaway, isn't it? Something everyone remembers for the rest of their lives. And I've noticed that all inspirational speakers now use acronyms. This is a fashion, isn't it? So, for example, and I know a lot of people said, could you bring Stephen Gerrard back to Commemoration Day? And I don't want to be considered a one-trick pony, so I'm going to bring back Wayne Rooney, actually. So if you don't know what an acronym is, if Wayne Rooney were giving this speech now, he'd say something like GOAL. My message for all future England footballers is GOAL, goal. So G would be get a lot of people's hopes up. O would be, oh no, it's 1-0 to them already. A would be for, hey, hang on a minute, we've got and lost again. And then after the World Cup, L is for, leave it out, will you? I did my best. At least I didn't bite anyone. Anyway, so I had to come up with an acronym because everybody else doesn't. Unfortunately, it's spelled YNA. Y-N-A, YNA. which is you never arrive. And that sounds incredibly negative, but it's not. It's liberating. And I want to explain myself. What I'm going to try to get through now to the believers is please, please keep your mind refreshed, relish the intellectual and ethical journey you are on. Don't be a standing stone, be a voyager. Be a voyager. So what do I mean by all that? Well, let's start with the simple fact that every leaver here presumably has an ambition of some kind. I mean, some of you might want to make crime pay. You'll become lawyers. Some of you will want to take over the most fashionable course and job now in the country, which of course is a psychologist. But I thought about this. It means if you become a psychologist, you'll never be able to change a light bulb because changing it won't work unless the light bulb itself really wants to change. The easiest thing to be, of course, is a teacher, because then you can put down people 1/4 of your age, which is great fun. Sir, did you get those shoes from Oxfam? Yes, I did, and I saw your mum in there while I was there. She was buying your Christmas presents. Whatever career you choose, you will never, ever arrive. There is no house, there is no car, there is no job, there is no level of fame or any amount of makeup and plastic you can throw at your face called permanent happiness. Instead, you've got the journey. So I'm going to ask my leavers to make the journey as meaningful and rewarding as you can make it, because you have no idea how long it will last, and you really have no idea where it will take you. So I'm going to ask just for a couple of moments of very serious reflection on this. There are people who are standing stones, and they are the people who think they have arrived, they have made it. Now, they may have sound values, I'm not criticising those for a second, but they don't take those values where they're most needed. They feel safe, they cannot be knocked down, at least not without effort. They know a very great deal about the little patch of land on which they stand, and they can therefore sound impressive. But because they do not move, they have no perspective. They don't realise that how long a minute is depends entirely on which side of the bathroom door you're standing. They do not hold opinions, they are held by their opinions, and they grow horns where they should grow antennae. How bad can a standing stone be? Well, I'll give you an example that I think I put in one of my blogs, but it's worth repeating. It's absolutely true. In my second year, I conducted a survey of the common room, and a somewhat curmudgeonly teacher, long retired, filled in 3 of the questions, and they read like this. Do you think the new head is approachable? No. Have you tried to approach him? No. If not, why not? No point. And that one really wasn't made up. Now, the Voyagers have values as well, but the difference is they use those values to change things for the better. And if you become a Voyager, you should experiment, you'll get things wrong, and you'll be constantly criticised. Voyagers claim few certainties, but they don't change their minds so much as allowing their minds to change them. And they never stop wanting to learn. So to almost quote Karl Marx, mental revolutions are the locomotives of history. And just as an aside, why do Marxists only ever drink horrible tea? Because all property is theft. I thought that was the high spot of the address, actually. Now, you're probably looking at me thinking, what an arrogant so-and-so, this guy's off to Singapore, he's calling himself a Voyager, and those of us who are staying still are standing stones. Not at all, not at all. The journey is a mental one. Even if we think we are Voyagers, we cannot escape elements of the standing stones in our psyche. In modern jargon, that means we have memes, tropes and paradigms erected by our forebears, and they are very difficult to dislodge. And I want to give you an example of this. It is true, I've been blissfully happy at Bromsgrove, blissfully happy. And for 8 and a bit years, I didn't put a single application in anywhere, but then this particular post came up, so I applied. And stage 1 of the interview was to have a psychological profiling Skype interview with Irene, Irene spelt with a Y, Y-R-E-N-E, from Los Angeles. So Irene from Los Angeles was beamed into my office on my computer to give me a psychological profile interview. And what actually happened, perhaps I'll begin by telling you what Irene said to me and what I was thinking as she said it. So Irene appears on the screen. You can imagine exactly what Irene looks like, a Los Angeles psychological profiler. So she said, "Hi, Chris. I hope you're relaxed. I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your past and explore some avenues that may help us to get to know each other a little better." And I thought, you can use all the West Coast psychobabble you want, you cliched nutter. But you won't get past me. Okay, Chris, let's start with your childhood and your parents. I don't think so, Irene with a Y. What I'd like to do now is wind the conversation on half an hour. So, Chris, tell Irene again how you really feel. Everybody hates me! That's right, Chris, everybody hates you. And do you know why everybody hates you, Chris? I don't know. I do, Chris. It's because you're a loser. Say it, Chris. Say you're a loser. It'll feel good. I'm exaggerating just a little there. But I didn't like it one bit. I didn't like it because I realised, there should have been a rushing mental river of fascination and acceptance of this process. I'd never been through one of these. Why was I criticising this thing before it even began? But no, the great big standing stones of my mind were there damming the flow. And I was wrong. It was actually an extraordinary experience. She was brilliant at her job. And I didn't like it, but after 1 hour, I can tell you, I learned a whole lot about myself. But we're not going to turn this into a Woody Allen speech. Instead, I'm going to say, you will always, this is to the leavers now, you will always find lame excuses for never changing. For people of my age, it might be comfortable personal circumstances. For most of us, lack of time. For many teenagers, it's anti-intellectual peer pressure. But I tell you, where there are lulls in original thought and creative reassessment, great barriers of prejudice form. And bad, even evil habits are soon dressed up in the emperor's clothes of faux tradition and false belief systems. So Bromsgrovians, keep learning, keep questioning, stay hungry. You never arrive, you journey. If you want to just accumulate stuff and look good, if you really do want to live the WAG life, and some people in the Leavers book say, yeah, I want to live the WAG life, and gosh, I hope that's a joke. If that's what you really mean, then nothing I'm saying now will be of the slightest interest. There are plenty of super rich standing stones, and there have been many voyagers who died poor. Oscar Wilde, Jesus, Buddha, Vincent van Gogh. But active, open, challenged minds are the minds that change the world. And if you want to engage people, inspire people, understand and lead people, please remember this. I'm tempted to do it in Irene's voice, but I won't. Many of today's certainties are going to become tomorrow's superstitions. And every time you try to close a door on that reality, it's only going to come in through the window. Now, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to join me in applauding not just the Leavers, but everybody behind and in front of me, chronologically as well as geographically, who've helped Bromsgrove flourish. And by the way, there are some voyagers on this stage now. I don't want to embarrass people here and a few sat in front, but a lot of the people here are incredibly successful. They could live in a great big house, build a big wall, drive around in 3 cars and say, I have arrived. But they don't. They dedicate their time, their passion, their effort to make this a better school for nothing. And I want to thank all of them. To parents, pupils, staff, alumni, trustees, governors and friends of Bromsgrove, I express my unreserved gratitude for giving me the opportunity to lead this great and voyaging school. Not only do I thank you, I congratulate you on your roles in this noble story. Bromsgrove School arrived. There is no end point. There is only the journey. You'll meet some standing stones on the way, but I hope all of you and all future Bromsgrovians enjoy the thrilling odyssey. Let other people praise ancient times. I am glad I was born in these. Bromsgrove's golden age is now, and tomorrow is going to be better than today. And Peter, I'm already envious of you. What a place to be, and what a time to be here. It's been my privilege, my honour, my delight to serve all of you. And I'd like to ask you to help me congratulate the 2014 leavers. My final statement will not be with the spoken word. It's actually going to come through the miracle of music. It's always struck me as strange that a school as ancient and illustrious as Bromsgrove doesn't have a school song. We've waited 500 years for a school song, and I'm happy to tell you that today that wait is over. I sense a nervousness. I don't want to sound in any way immodest, but I dare to hope that what I have written for you today, my own mystical union of a transcendental text and a sublime melody, may one day replace the Te Deum and Jerusalem in the hearts of Bromsgrove pupils. I do accept some visitors today may find a few of the references arcane, but I hope all of you will be inspired and moved by this, my final contribution as headmaster. It is a personal, profound meditation on you, the leavers, and what you have experienced at this great school. And I promise you, I have spent minutes of my life putting this together. I'm not sure if I can do this in a gown and hood, but I'm going to find out now. Floreat Bromsgrovia, thank you. Really bad news is I actually left the words here and they're gone. So I'm going to have to do this from memory now. Alma mater, but frankly I'm no smarter than the day I first set foot on Gordon Green. I don't want to cause no trouble, but in this Bromsgrove bubble, you can't escape the big maroon machine. They work you in the class, in the gym and on the grass, then you're subject to their critical review. Well, today there'll be no sighing, no wobbly lip, no crying. I can't wait to start my life in Pantone 202. There are things you'll never see in this weird community. We're not allowed to kiss or touch or flirt. It's tedious and it's tame, but the teachers are the same. You won't see Mrs. Maund in a mini skirt. Mom's a rotten apple. Once I skipped a chapel. Christian forgiveness didn't flow. Still, I'll offer up a prayer. Will Doc Thompson cut his hair? And will Mr. Rubens ever grow? The pressure's piled on you. There's far too much to do. Priorities are difficult to call. Sport or academe, exam results or team, music, drama, CCF, you cannot do it all. They chuck you in detention, you suffer hypertension, you search for the room in vain. So you're sent to Mr. Bowen, cause you're down as ain't no show, and then it all kicks off again. You're teenage and you're sullen, you take on Mr. Mullen, and suddenly it's press-ups by the pool. We empty out our purses to fatten up the bursars. Is this a business or a school? You think you're here on merit, but Doctors Jones and Werrett play Henry to your Anne Boleyn. Headless as a chicken, your pulse begins to quicken. You're shown a yellow card by Miss Mrs. Shin. Regulation dresses, Alice bands in tresses. You think we lived in 1955? The Board of Education should note this observation. Most of us are old enough to drive. I'd swim the English Channel to get away from Scannell. She reads the regulations every night. If you try to catch her out, you'll get a mouthful and a clout, and it's a breach of human rights. Now Commem is here, and our childhoods disappear. Our mums take snaps, our dads try not to cry. Your cute and tiny baby is all grown up, and maybe Bromsgrove School has helped in teaching baby how to fly. So now as I look back, let's concede they had a knack in preparing us for best and worst. And even if I don't fall over on that last step at call over, today my Bromsgrove bubble has to burst. Today my Bromsgrove bubble, today my Bromsgrove bubble has to burst.
As always, I now have the terror, which I have had for the last number of years, of following the most fantastic performance. You can't call it a speech, can you? It's a performance. Chris, thank you so much for that. We heard from our preacher today of beginnings and endings. What a fantastic way to end a career at Bromsgrove. Thank you again. We heard from our preacher this morning of the darker side of human nature, and he urged us in church to seek that which nurtures our souls, not steals them. And I think you've heard today of all the things that are going on in a Bromsgrove education which seeks to nurture the souls of our young people. And we should thank Chris very, very sincerely for those 10 hugely successful years where he has built the triumvirate of the school, the old Bromsgrovian community, and the foundation to work together. He's improved reputation and performance across the board. He's worked on academic, sporting and pastoral care. He's developed our asset base. He's managed constant change. We've introduced IB, we've changed the working week, but we've also had the nature that he has given us through his speeches, varying from Liverpudlian to Harry Potter, through to the performance that you've seen today. It's that connection with all of us that makes Chris Edwards so very special. So, we're here today to say thank you and to celebrate all those achievements. Your people skills, the teams that you've built, the diversity, equality and respect that you've brought to this school have been tremendous. And we heard yesterday from Andrea, our deputy head girl, of the hugely broad education that being a Bromsgrovian is all about. I have to welcome 3 new governors to the governing body who seek to carry that tradition and efficiency of delivery forward. That's Michael Luckman, Dr. Claire Lidbury, they're both parents and I think Claire is out there somewhere, and Paul West, who's our new Bishop's representative. So we welcome them to the governing body. But coming back to what Andrea said yesterday, she so ably demonstrated, as has Chris today, the pride but also the humility of being a Bromsgrovian. And I hope that today, as you all head off on summer holidays and our leavers, I hope that you remember those really important 2 tenets of carrying you forward. The pride, but also the humility of being a Bromsgrovian. And certainly it brought it back to me, because I stood on this stage as head boy 44 years ago. And the principles never change. But the last 10 years have taken this school from a point where we were successful, really up into that very important stratosphere, where we are now seen as one of the leading schools in this country. So, we hope that you as leavers have enjoyed your time at the school, but we end today with a huge thank you to Chris for all that he's brought us over the last 10 years. Have a great summer holiday.